What if the challenges you face aren't obstacles holding you back, but instead they're hidden opportunities for growth? One of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This simple yet profound idea has echoed through centuries, offering a powerful lens through which to view life's difficulties. Today, we're diving into the Stoic perspective on adversity, a perspective that doesn't just ask you to endure hardship, but to embrace it as your greatest teacher. Stoicism teaches us that adversity isn't something to avoid or fear. Instead, it's an essential part of life that shapes us, strengthens us, and pushes us to become the best versions of ourselves. By reframing how we see challenges, we can transform them into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. In this video, we'll explore key Stoic principles like resilience, cognitive reframing, and the dichotomy of control, tools that can help you not only navigate adversity but thrive because of it. Whether you're facing a personal setback, a professional challenge, or simply the everyday stresses of life, the wisdom of the Stoics offers a way forward. So let's uncover how adversity, when approached with the right mindset, can become one of the most powerful teachers you'll ever encounter. For Stoics, adversity is not the enemy, it's the classroom. This perspective might seem counterintuitive at first, especially in a world that often equates success with ease and comfort. But the Stoics saw challenges differently. They believed that every hardship, every setback, was an invitation to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Instead of running from difficulty, they embraced it as an opportunity to practice virtues like courage, wisdom, and temperance. Take Seneca's words, for example. "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." He wasn't just speaking in abstract terms. He was pointing to a truth that anyone can observe in their own life. That struggle, when faced with the right mindset, shapes us into better versions of ourselves. Think about it. When have you ever grown without some form of resistance? It's the friction of adversity that polishes our character, much like a rough stone is smoothed into something beautiful. This idea isn't just philosophical, it's practical. Consider historical figures like the Younger, who faced immense political and personal challenges yet remained steadfast in his principles. Or Epictetus, who, despite being born into slavery, used his struggles as a foundation to teach others about freedom of the mind. These individuals didn't just endure adversity, they turned it into a tool for self-mastery. So what about you? Can you think of a moment in your own life where a challenge, big or small, taught you something valuable? Maybe it was a failure that pushed you to try harder, or a loss that revealed your inner strength. The Stoics would say that these moments aren't just random obstacles, they're lessons waiting to be learned. By reframing adversity as an opportunity, we stop seeing it as something to avoid and start viewing it as a teacher. It's not about pretending that hardships don't hurt or that challenges are easy. It's about recognizing that within every difficulty lies the potential for growth. And that's where true strength begins. What if you could stop worrying about things beyond your control? This simple yet profound question lies at the heart of one of Stoicism's most powerful principles, the dichotomy of control. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering comes from trying to control what is inherently uncontrollable: external events, other people's actions, or even the outcomes of our efforts. Instead, they taught that true freedom and peace come from focusing only on what we can control: our thoughts, our reactions, and our choices. As Epictetus famously put it, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. This distinction between what's outside our power and what's within it is the foundation of Stoic resilience. Imagine facing a sudden job loss, a situation many of us dread. Externally, the loss itself is beyond your control. The company's decision has already been made. But internally, you have complete power over how you process the event, how you plan your next steps, and how you choose to grow from the experience. The Stoics would argue that your mindset in these moments is where your strength truly lies. Think about a failed relationship. You can't control how someone else feels or acts, but you can control how you reflect on the experience, what lessons you take from it, and how you move forward with grace and self-compassion. The Stoic approach isn't about ignoring pain or pretending challenges don't exist. It's about shifting your focus to the one place where you have agency, your own mind. So here's a challenge for you. In the face of a current difficulty, what's one thing you can control? Maybe it's your attitude, your effort, or even just the way you talk to yourself about the situation. By identifying that one point of control, you begin to reclaim your power, just as the Stoics taught. This isn't about denying reality. It's about choosing where to place your energy so you can respond to life's challenges with clarity and strength. Resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build through adversity. Think of it like a muscle. The more you challenge it, the stronger it becomes. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a nice idea, it was a core principle. They believed that hardship wasn't something to avoid but something to embrace, because it's through struggle that we develop the mental and emotional toughness needed to navigate life's challenges. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers put it this way: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the obstacles we face aren't just barriers, they're opportunities. They force us to adapt, to grow, and to discover strengths we didn't know we had. Imagine a tree standing in a storm. It's the wind that makes its roots grow deeper and its trunk stronger. Without the storm, the tree would remain weak, unable to withstand future challenges. Consider the story of James, an American naval officer who was held as a prisoner of war during the Vietnam War. For over 7 years, he endured brutal conditions, yet he credited his survival to Stoic philosophy. He didn't see his captivity as a tragedy, but as a test of his resilience. By focusing on what he could control, his mindset, his attitude, his principles, he not only survived but emerged stronger. His story is a powerful reminder that adversity doesn't define us. How we respond to it does. So how can you apply this to your own life? Think about a time when you faced a significant challenge. Maybe it was a personal loss, a professional setback, or a moment of self-doubt. Looking back, what did that experience teach you? How did it shape the person you are today? The Stoics would argue that every hardship, no matter how painful, carries a lesson. It's not about pretending the struggle doesn't hurt. It's about recognizing that the struggle is where growth happens. Adversity isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. And every challenge you overcome is a step toward becoming more resilient, more grounded, and more capable of handling whatever life throws your way. What if you could change the way you see your challenges? This is the essence of cognitive reframing, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that adversity isn't inherently good or bad, it's our perception of it that shapes its impact. By shifting our perspective, we can transform obstacles into opportunities and find meaning even in the most difficult moments. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. What he's pointing to is the power of perception. It's not the event itself that causes us pain, but the way we interpret it. If we can reframe our thoughts, we can reduce suffering and uncover hidden value in our struggles. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you've just received a rejection. Maybe it's a job you didn't get or a project that didn't go as planned. Your first reaction might be frustration or disappointment. But what if, instead of dwelling on the loss, you asked yourself, what can I learn from this? How does this rejection prepare me for the next opportunity? By reframing the situation, you shift from seeing it as a failure to viewing it as a stepping stone. This is Stoicism in action, finding growth where others might only see defeat. Now think about a challenge you're facing right now. How could you reframe it? What meaning or lesson might be hidden within it? The Stoics remind us that adversity is a teacher, but it's up to us to listen to its lessons. By changing the way we see our struggles, we can change the way we experience them, and ultimately change the way we grow. Stoics teach us that resistance to adversity only deepens our suffering. Imagine trying to push against a tidal wave. No matter how much strength you exert, the water will inevitably overwhelm you. This is precisely what happens when we fight against the challenges life throws our way. Acceptance, on the other hand, doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to defeat. Instead, it's about recognizing what is beyond our control and choosing to focus our energy where it truly matters. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that acceptance isn't passive. It's an active choice to redirect our efforts toward what we can influence. When we stop resisting the inevitable, we free ourselves from the emotional weight of frustration and despair. Take, for example, losing a job unexpectedly. It's natural to feel anger, fear, or disappointment in the moment, but dwelling on those emotions without action only keeps us stuck. A Stoic approach would be to acknowledge the loss, grieve if needed, and then shift focus to the opportunities that remain, networking, upskilling, or even exploring a new career path. By accepting the situation, we open ourselves to growth rather than stagnation. So, what are you resisting in your own life? Is it a difficult relationship, a career setback, or perhaps even a personal failure? Consider why you're holding on so tightly to what you can't change. What might happen if you let go, even just a little, and allowed yourself to move forward? Acceptance isn't about surrendering to life's hardships. It's about finding the strength to navigate them with clarity and purpose. Adversity doesn't break us. It shows us who we truly are. Think about it. When everything is going smoothly, it's easy to feel confident, kind, and resilient. But when life throws a curveball, that's when our true nature comes to light. The Stoics believed that adversity is less about what happens to us and more about how we respond. It's a mirror, reflecting our strengths and weaknesses and giving us the opportunity to grow. One of the most revered Stoic philosophers once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." What he's pointing to is the idea that while we can't control the challenges life brings, we can control how we meet them. Adversity tests our integrity, patience, and courage. It asks us, will we crumble under pressure or will we rise to the occasion? Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who faced countless failures before inventing He didn't see his setbacks as defeats, but as opportunities to learn and improve. Each failure revealed something about his determination and creativity. In the same way, our struggles can uncover hidden reserves of strength and resilience we didn't know we had. So what about you? When was the last time you faced a challenge that tested your character? Maybe it was a tough conversation, a professional setback, or a personal loss. What did that experience reveal about your values and your ability to persevere? These moments, as difficult as they may be, are where growth happens. They shape us into more thoughtful, capable, and grounded individuals. Adversity isn't just a test, it's a teacher. It doesn't define us, but it refines us. And in the process, it helps us uncover the best version of ourselves. Detachment doesn't mean indifference, it means freedom. For the Stoics, this idea is central to navigating life's challenges. Detachment isn't about avoiding emotions or pretending not to care. It's about recognizing what's within our control and what isn't. By letting go of our tight grip on outcomes, we reduce the emotional weight of adversity and open ourselves to a more peaceful way of living. The Stoic philosopher Seneca put it best when he wrote, "You are unfortunate in my judgment, for you have never been unfortunate. You have passed through life without an opponent. No one can know what you are capable of, not even you." What he's getting at here is that adversity, and our ability to detach from it, reveals our true strength. When we stop clinging to how we think things should be, we free ourselves to adapt and grow, no matter what happens. Think about it like this. Imagine you're working toward a promotion at your job. You've put in the effort, done everything right, and you feel like you deserve it. But here's the thing, whether you get that promotion or not isn't entirely up to you. External factors, office politics, or even timing could influence the outcome. If you're overly attached to the result, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and frustration. But if you focus instead on what you can control, your effort, your attitude, and your resilience, you'll find a sense of peace, regardless of the outcome. This practice of detachment applies to relationships, too. Maybe you've been holding onto a friendship or partnership that no longer serves you, fearing the void it might leave behind. But by releasing that attachment, you create space for healthier connections and personal growth. Detachment isn't about giving up, it's about choosing freedom over fear. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one attachment in your life that might be holding you back? Is it a goal, a relationship, or even an expectation you've set for yourself? What would it feel like to loosen your grip, even just a little, and trust that you'll be okay no matter what happens? The Stoics believe that true freedom comes from this kind of release. And the more we practice it, the better equipped we become to face life's ups and downs with clarity and calm. The present moment is where we find the strength to face adversity. For the Stoics, this idea wasn't just a comforting thought, it was a cornerstone of their philosophy. When life throws us into chaos, it's easy to get swept up in worries about what might happen tomorrow, next week, or even years from now. But the Stoics believed that true power lies in focusing on what's right in front of us. By anchoring ourselves in the present, we can confront challenges without being overwhelmed by fear or anxiety. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers put it this way: "The present is all that you have. The future is uncertain and the past is gone. So where else can you live but now?" This simple yet profound truth reminds us that the present moment is the only place where we can take action, make decisions, and truly live. When we let go of what we can't control, whether it's the uncertainty of the future or the mistakes of the past, we free ourselves to face adversity with clarity and courage. Take, for example, the story of a young athlete who suffered a career-threatening injury. At first, she was consumed by fear of losing everything she'd worked for, fear of what her future would look like. But instead of letting those anxieties paralyze her, she turned to Stoic practices. She began focusing on the small, immediate steps she could take: physical therapy, rest, and mental preparation. By staying present, she found the resilience to rebuild her strength, both physically and mentally. In time, she not only recovered, but also returned to her sport stronger than before. This is the power of presence. It's not about ignoring the difficulties we face. It's about meeting them head-on, right here and now. When we stop projecting our fears into the future, we realize that we have the tools to handle whatever is in front of us. So how can we apply this in our own lives? Start by taking a moment to notice where your mind is right now. Are you worrying about something that hasn't happened yet? Are you replaying a past mistake? Gently bring your focus back to the present. What can you do today in this very moment to move forward? It might be something small, a single step, a deep breath, or even just acknowledging where you are. That's where your strength lies. By practicing this kind of mindfulness, we can begin to face adversity not with fear, but with the calm, steady resolve that the Stoics championed. The present moment is where life happens, and it's also where we find the courage to keep going. Even in adversity, there is always something to be grateful for. This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, offering a powerful way to reframe hardship. When life throws us challenges, it's easy to focus on what we've lost or what's gone wrong. But the Stoics remind us that gratitude is a tool, a way to shift our perspective and uncover the hidden value in even the most difficult circumstances. Think about it this way. Adversity often strips away the non-essentials, forcing us to confront what truly matters. It's in those moments of struggle that we're reminded of the things we might otherwise take for granted: our health, our relationships, or even the simple fact that we have the strength to face the day. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it beautifully when he said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." In other words, gratitude isn't just about feeling thankful. It's about recognizing the abundance that exists even in the midst of scarcity. Let's take a moment to bring this to life with a real-world example. Consider the story of a psychologist and Holocaust survivor. In the unimaginable suffering of a concentration camp, found a way to cultivate gratitude, not for his circumstances, but for the small, fleeting moments of humanity that still existed. The kindness of a fellow prisoner, the beauty of a sunrise, or even the memory of a loved one became sources of strength. By focusing on what he still had, rather than what had been taken away, was able to endure and ultimately find meaning in his suffering. His story is a testament to the transformative power of gratitude, even in the darkest of times. Now let's bring this closer to home. What about your own life? When you face adversity, where do you find gratitude? It doesn't have to be something monumental. It could be as simple as the support of a friend, the comfort of a warm meal, or the opportunity to learn and grow from the experience. Pause for a moment and think. What are 3 things you're grateful for, even in the midst of your challenges? By making this a regular practice, you'll start to see that adversity isn't just an obstacle. It's also a teacher, revealing the blessings that might otherwise go unnoticed. What if you could prepare for adversity before it strikes? This is the essence of the Stoic practice known as, or the premeditation of evils. It's not about dwelling on negativity or fostering fear, but rather about mentally rehearsing potential challenges so that when they arise, they lose their power to surprise or overwhelm us. The Stoics believed that by imagining the worst-case scenarios, we could strip adversity of its sting and face it with clarity and calm. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise." In other words, by mentally preparing for difficulties, we're not inviting them into our lives, we're disarming them. This practice isn't about pessimism, it's about empowerment. It's about training your mind to see obstacles not as insurmountable threats, but as manageable challenges. Think about it in modern terms. Imagine you're about to have a difficult conversation with a colleague or a loved one. Instead of avoiding the topic or hoping it will resolve itself, you take a moment to envision how the conversation might unfold. You consider the worst-case scenario. Perhaps they become defensive, or the discussion escalates into an argument. By playing out this scenario in your mind, you're not only preparing for how you'll respond, but you're also reducing the emotional charge around the situation. When the time comes, you're more likely to approach it with composure and tact. This exercise isn't limited to interpersonal challenges either. It can be applied to any area of life, whether it's preparing for a job interview, a financial setback, or even a personal loss. The goal isn't to dwell on the negative, but to build a psychological buffer that helps you navigate life's uncertainties with greater resilience. So here's a challenge for you. Think about an upcoming situation that feels daunting or uncertain. Spend a few moments practicing. Imagine the worst-case scenario, not to dwell on it, but to prepare yourself mentally. How would you respond? What steps could you take to mitigate the impact? By doing this, you're not just bracing for adversity, you're cultivating the kind of inner strength that allows you to meet it head-on with confidence and grace. Adversity isn't just a test, it's a path to virtue. For the Stoics, the ultimate goal in life wasn't to avoid hardship, but to live in alignment with virtue, no matter what obstacles stood in the way. Challenges, in their view, aren't distractions from living well. They're the very means by which we grow into better versions of ourselves. Think about it. When life is easy, it's simple to coast along without much thought or effort. But when adversity strikes, that's when we're forced to make choices that reveal our true character. Do we act with wisdom, courage, and justice, even when it's difficult? Or do we let fear and frustration guide us? One of the most famous Stoic philosophers once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This simple yet profound idea captures the essence of how adversity shapes virtue. Every obstacle we face is an opportunity to practice patience, to build resilience, and to act with integrity. It's not about avoiding the storm, but learning how to navigate it with purpose and strength. Take, for example, the story of Nelson. During his 27 years in prison, faced unimaginable hardships, loneliness, injustice, and constant adversity. Yet, instead of succumbing to bitterness, he chose to act with dignity and compassion. He used his time to reflect, to educate himself, and to prepare for a future where he could lead his country toward reconciliation. Life is a powerful testament to how adversity can become a crucible for virtue, transforming suffering into strength and wisdom. So what about you? When you face challenges in your own life, how do you respond? Do you see them as opportunities to practice virtues like patience, courage, or fairness? The next time you're confronted with a difficult situation, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, how can I act virtuously here? How can I turn this obstacle into an opportunity to grow? By shifting your perspective, you might find that adversity isn't just something to endure. It's a chance to become the person you aspire to be. Even Stoics know we don't face adversity alone. While the philosophy emphasizes self-reliance and inner strength, it also recognizes the profound role of community in helping us navigate life's challenges. Stoicism isn't about isolating ourselves. It's about understanding when and how to draw on the strength of others to build resilience. This balance between independence and interdependence is a cornerstone of Stoic wisdom. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once wrote, "Friendship always benefits, love sometimes injures." What he meant was that true friendship, rooted in mutual respect and support, can be a lifeline during tough times. Friends offer perspective when our own vision becomes clouded by struggle. They remind us of our values, help us see the bigger picture, and often provide the encouragement we need to keep moving forward. For Stoics, leaning on a trusted community isn't a sign of weakness, it's an act of wisdom. It's about recognizing that we're human and humans thrive in connection. Take, for example, the story of a Stoic leader during a natural disaster. When faced with overwhelming destruction, they didn't retreat into solitude. Instead, their community, working together to rebuild and restore. By leaning on one another, they found strength in unity and turned what seemed like insurmountable adversity into a shared triumph. This is the Stoic approach to community in action, not just enduring hardship, but transforming it through collective effort. So what does this mean for you? Think about the people in your life who've been there for you during tough moments. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or a mentor. Now consider reaching out to them. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Sometimes, just a conversation can be enough to remind you that you're not alone. And if you're in a position to support someone else, don't hesitate. Stoicism teaches us that we grow stronger not just by overcoming our own challenges, but by helping others do the same. Adversity is inevitable, but how we face it, and who we face it with, can make all the difference. By embracing the Stoic value of community, we don't just endure hardship, we transform it into an opportunity for connection and growth. Adversity reminds us that control is often an illusion. Think about it. How often do we stress over outcomes, only to realize later that so much of what happens is beyond our influence? The truth is, life doesn't always bend to our will, no matter how carefully we plan or how hard we strive. Stoicism teaches us that clinging to the idea of control can actually deepen our suffering. When we insist on trying to manage every detail, we set ourselves up for frustration and disappointment. But when we let go of that need, when we accept that some things are simply outside our power, we find a sense of peace, even in the face of challenges. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it perfectly when he said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of Stoic wisdom. It's not about giving up or being passive. It's about redirecting our energy toward what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. Everything else, that's where we learn to step back and trust the process, even when it feels uncomfortable. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine receiving an unexpected health diagnosis. It's natural to feel overwhelmed, even scared, by the uncertainty it brings. You might try to control every aspect, researching endlessly, seeking second opinions, or obsessing over what-ifs. But the reality is, there are limits to what you can do. What you can control is how you choose to respond. Will you let fear consume you, or will you focus on what's within your power? Like following your treatment plan, staying present, and finding moments of gratitude. That shift in perspective can make all the difference. Now take a moment to reflect. What's one thing in your life right now that you're trying to control but can't? Maybe it's a relationship, a career outcome, or even the behavior of someone else. Recognize that holding onto it too tightly might only be adding to your stress. What would it feel like to loosen your grip, even just a little? To focus instead on how you can respond with clarity and resilience, no matter what happens. That's where true strength lies, not in controlling the uncontrollable, but in mastering how you move through it. What if you could love every part of your life, even the hard parts? This is the heart of the Stoic practice of a Latin phrase that means love of fate. It's not about passively accepting what happens to you, but actively embracing it, finding meaning in it, and even seeing it as essential to your growth. The Stoics believed that life's challenges, no matter how painful, are opportunities to strengthen your character and deepen your understanding of yourself. By loving your fate, you transform adversity from an enemy into a teacher. The philosopher Nietzsche, who was deeply inspired by Stoic thought, once said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it." That's a powerful idea, not just enduring hardship, but loving it. Why? Because when you embrace your fate, you stop resisting what you cannot control. You stop wasting energy on frustration or regret, and instead, you channel that energy into growth. Think of it like this. Imagine you're hiking up a steep mountain. The climb is exhausting and every step feels like a struggle. But what if, instead of resenting the climb, you started to appreciate it? What if you saw the strain in your legs as proof of your strength, the sweat on your brow as evidence of your effort, and the view from the top as a reward you couldn't have earned any other way? That's loving the journey, not just the destination. To bring this to life, let's look at a real-world example. Take the story of a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. In the face of unimaginable suffering, chose to find meaning in his ordeal. He didn't just endure the horrors of the concentration camps. He used them as a catalyst to develop his philosophy of, which focuses on finding purpose in life, even in the darkest moments. His ability to embrace his fate, to love it in a profound sense, allowed him to transform his pain into something that inspired millions. So how can we apply this in our own lives? Start by reflecting on one aspect of your adversity that you can begin to embrace. Maybe it's a setback at work, a strained relationship, or a personal struggle. Instead of seeing it as a burden, ask yourself, what can this teach me? How can this make me stronger? By shifting your perspective, even just a little, you can start to see the value in what you might otherwise resent. Isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding the perfection in everything, even the imperfections. Letting go isn't giving up, it's finding freedom. This is a core principle in Stoicism, and it's one of the most liberating tools we can use to navigate life's challenges. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from our attachment to outcomes we can't control. When we cling to what's beyond our power, whether it's a past mistake, a grudge, or an uncertain future, we trap ourselves in unnecessary pain. But when we learn to let go, we reclaim our peace and energy for what truly matters. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. What he meant is that our minds often magnify problems by fixating on what we can't change. Letting go isn't about ignoring the situation or pretending it doesn't matter. It's about recognizing that some things are simply outside our control and choosing to focus instead on how we respond. This shift in perspective doesn't just reduce suffering, it empowers us to move forward with clarity and purpose. Think about a grudge you've held onto or a regret that still weighs on you. Maybe it's a past mistake you can't undo or a conflict you wish had gone differently. Holding onto these things doesn't change what happened, it only keeps you stuck in a cycle of frustration or sadness. The Stoics would encourage you to ask yourself, is this within my control? Can I change it? If the answer is no, then the healthiest choice is to release it. Letting go doesn't mean you forget or condone what happened. It means you choose not to let it define your present or dictate your future. Here's a practical way to practice this. Take a moment to identify one thing in your life that you've been holding on to, something you can't change but still carries emotional weight. It could be a past failure, a missed opportunity, or even a fear about the future. Acknowledge it and then consciously decide to let it go. Visualize setting it down, like releasing a heavy weight you've been carrying. This simple act can be incredibly freeing, and it's a step toward living more aligned with Stoic wisdom. The art of letting go isn't easy, it takes practice and courage. But when we embrace it, we open the door to a calmer, more resilient way of living. It's not about giving up, it's about choosing where to direct your energy and attention. And as Seneca reminds us, true peace comes from accepting what we cannot change and focusing on what we can. Adversity doesn't create our character, it reveals it. Think about it, when everything is going smoothly, it's easy to feel confident, composed, and in control. But when life throws us into the fire, that's when we see who we truly are. Challenges have a way of stripping away the masks we wear, exposing our strengths, our fears, and even the parts of ourselves we might not want to face. This is why the Stoics believed that adversity is like a mirror. It reflects our inner world with unflinching honesty. One of the great Stoic philosophers once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." What he's pointing to here is the importance of self-awareness. When adversity strikes, it's not the external chaos that defines us, but how we respond to it. Do we crumble under pressure, or do we rise to the occasion? Do we blame others, or do we take responsibility? These moments of struggle show us where we stand and what we're capable of, and that's invaluable knowledge. Take the story of a young entrepreneur who lost everything in the early days of her business. When her company failed, she was forced to confront her own fears of inadequacy and self-doubt. But instead of letting those feelings define her, she used the experience to rebuild herself. She discovered a resilience she didn't know she had, and that newfound strength became the foundation for her eventual success. Adversity didn't just test her, it revealed her. So what about you? What have your challenges shown you about yourself? Have you noticed patterns in how you handle pressure, setbacks, or unexpected changes? These moments, as difficult as they may be, are opportunities for growth. They're invitations to look deeper, to understand yourself better, and to align your actions with the person you aspire to be. Adversity isn't just a test, it's a teacher, and it's always showing us something about who we are. What if remembering death could help you live more fully? This might sound counterintuitive, but for the Stoics, reflecting on mortality wasn't about fear or despair. It was about liberation. The practice of memento, Latin for remember you must die, was a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. It wasn't meant to depress or paralyze. Instead, it served as a powerful tool to put life's challenges into perspective. When you confront the reality of your own impermanence, the smaller struggles, the setbacks, the rejections, the inconveniences, begin to lose their grip on you. Suddenly, adversity doesn't seem so overwhelming because you realize how fleeting it truly is. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." His words remind us that life's brevity isn't a curse, it's a call to action. When you truly grasp how finite your time is, you stop sweating the small stuff. You start focusing on what truly matters, on the things that align with your values and bring meaning to your existence. The fear of failure, the anxiety of rejection, the sting of criticism, these all shrink in significance when held up against the inevitability of death. Consider the story of a young entrepreneur who faced a series of devastating business failures. At first, each setback felt like the end of the world. But after embracing the practice of memento, she began to see her struggles in a new light. She realized that her time was too precious to spend drowning in regret or fear. Instead, she channeled her energy into learning from her mistakes and pursuing her goals with renewed focus. By remembering her mortality, she found the courage to keep going, even when the path ahead seemed impossible. So here's a question for you. How might your perspective on adversity shift if you took a moment to remember your own mortality? What would you stop worrying about? What would you start prioritizing? The practice of memento isn't about dwelling on death. It's about using the awareness of life's finiteness to live with greater intention, courage, and gratitude. It's about turning adversity into an opportunity to grow, to thrive, and to make the most of the time you have. Inner peace isn't the absence of adversity, it's the presence of perspective. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that true tranquility isn't about avoiding life's challenges, but about transforming how we see and respond to them. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the rain pours, and everything around you feels chaotic. Yet, within you, there's a quiet center, a place of calm that no external force can disturb. This is the peace the Stoics sought, and it's something anyone can cultivate, no matter how turbulent life becomes. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea shifts the focus from trying to control the uncontrollable to mastering our own thoughts and emotions. The Stoics didn't deny that adversity is painful or difficult. Instead, they taught that by changing our perspective, we can find a sense of stability and even growth in the face of hardship. Think about a time when you faced a situation that felt overwhelming. Maybe it was a sudden loss, a career setback, or a personal conflict. In those moments, it's easy to feel like the world is against you. But what if, instead of resisting the chaos, you chose to see it as an opportunity to strengthen your resilience? This mindset shift doesn't erase the pain, but it gives you a way to navigate it with clarity and purpose. Consider the story of a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. In the midst of unimaginable suffering, found a way to preserve his inner peace by focusing on what he could control, his attitude and his sense of meaning. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This Stoic-like approach allowed him to endure and even find moments of hope in the darkest of times. So, what mindset shift could bring you peace in your own life? Maybe it's learning to see challenges as opportunities for growth, or finding gratitude in the midst of difficulty. Perhaps it's simply reminding yourself that while you can't control everything that happens to you, you can always choose how you respond. Take a moment to reflect on this. What's one small change in perspective that could help you find calm? Even when the storm rages around you, adversity reminds us that we're not as powerful as we think. It strips away the illusion of control and forces us to confront our limitations. And in that confrontation, something profound happens. We learn humility. Humility isn't about thinking less of ourselves, it's about thinking of ourselves less. It's the quiet recognition that we're part of something larger, that life doesn't revolve around our desires or plans. When adversity strikes, it humbles us by showing us just how small we are in the grand scheme of things. But instead of feeling defeated, this realization can be liberating. It frees us from the burden of trying to control everything and allows us to focus on what we can actually influence. The great Stoic emperor once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is the essence of humility, accepting what we cannot change and directing our energy toward what we can. Adversity teaches us this lesson in the most direct way possible. It doesn't ask for permission or give warnings. It simply arrives, demanding that we adapt and grow. And in that process, we're reminded that we're not invincible, and that's okay. Humility allows us to face challenges without arrogance or resistance, opening the door to learning and resilience. Take, for example, the story of a successful entrepreneur who lost everything in a financial crash. At first, they were consumed by anger and frustration, blaming the world for their misfortune. But over time, they began to see their situation differently. They realized that their previous success had made them overconfident, even reckless. The adversity they faced became a teacher, showing them the importance of humility and preparation. They rebuilt their life, not as someone who thought they had all the answers, but as someone who understood the value of caution, gratitude, and continuous learning. This shift in perspective didn't just help them recover, it made them a better, more grounded person. So how has adversity humbled you? Maybe it was a failure that made you rethink your approach, or a loss that reminded you of what truly matters. Whatever it was, take a moment to reflect on how it shaped your perspective. Did it teach you to let go of pride? Did it show you the importance of leaning on others for support? Adversity has a way of grounding us, of bringing us back to what's real. And in that grounding, we often find the clarity and strength we need to move forward. Humility isn't a weakness. It's a quiet kind of power, one that helps us navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom. Patience isn't passive. It's a powerful response to adversity. The Stoics understood this deeply, teaching that patience is not about waiting idly, but about actively enduring and growing through life's challenges. When adversity strikes, it's easy to feel frustrated, to lash out, or to give up. But the Stoics remind us that patience is a virtue, a deliberate choice to remain steady and composed, even when everything around us feels chaotic. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." In other words, patience gives us the space to think clearly, to respond wisely, and to avoid being ruled by our emotions. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You trust the process, knowing that with time, care, and the right conditions, it will flourish. Adversity works the same way. It's not always about immediate results or quick fixes. It's about trusting the process, learning from the struggle, and allowing yourself the time to grow. Take the story of Thomas Edison, for example. He failed thousands of times before successfully inventing the. Instead of giving up, he saw each failure as a step closer to success. His patience and persistence paid off, not just in his invention, but in the resilience he built along the way. This is what the Stoics meant when they talked about patience. It's not just waiting for things to get better, it's about using the time to become better. So where in your life could you use more patience? Maybe it's in a relationship, a career goal, or even a personal habit you're trying to change. Reflect on this. What would it look like to approach that situation with the kind of patience the Stoics practiced? Not as a passive bystander, but as someone actively engaged in their own growth. The next time you face a challenge, remind yourself that patience is your ally, a tool to help you endure, adapt, and ultimately thrive. Even in adversity, we always have a choice. This is one of the most empowering ideas Stoicism offers us. While we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. The Stoics believed that our reactions to challenges reveal our true character. As Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Think about that for a moment. No matter how difficult the situation, the power to choose your response always lies within you. This idea isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. Take someone like a Holocaust survivor and psychologist. In the unimaginable suffering of a concentration camp, realized that even in the most brutal conditions, he could choose how he responded. He chose to find meaning in his suffering, a decision that not only helped him survive, but also inspired millions through his book Man's Search for Meaning. Story is a powerful reminder that adversity doesn't strip us of our ability to choose. Instead, it amplifies the importance of those choices. So what about you? When life throws obstacles in your path, how are you choosing to respond? Are you letting frustration take over, or are you looking for ways to grow through the challenge? The Stoics would argue that every hardship is an opportunity to practice virtue, courage, patience, or resilience. It's not about pretending the difficulty doesn't exist, but about deciding how you'll face it. This is where the real power lies. Adversity doesn't define you, your choices do. And every choice you make in the face of hardship is a chance to strengthen your character and deepen your understanding of what it means to live a meaningful life. Self-compassion isn't weakness, it's wisdom. In the Stoic tradition, there's a profound understanding that how we treat ourselves during challenging times can shape our ability to endure and grow. While Stoicism often emphasizes discipline, resilience, and facing hardship head-on, it also recognizes the importance of self-kindness. Striking this balance is key to thriving in the face of adversity. Once wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." While this might sound like a call to relentless self-criticism, it's deeper than that. His words remind us to hold ourselves accountable without falling into self-loathing or despair. Self-compassion, in the Stoic sense, means acknowledging our struggles with honesty while refusing to let them define us. It's about treating ourselves as we would a close friend, offering understanding and encouragement even when we fall short. Think about a time when you faced a setback. Maybe it was a missed opportunity, a personal failure, or a moment of overwhelming stress. How did you talk to yourself in that moment? Did you berate yourself, or did you offer a moment of grace? The Stoics would argue that self-compassion isn't about excusing our mistakes. It's about learning from them without letting them break us. By being kind to ourselves, we create the mental and emotional space to rise again, stronger and wiser. Take the story of a young entrepreneur who faced repeated failures in their business ventures. At first, they blamed themselves harshly, convinced they weren't good enough. But over time, they began to adopt a Stoic mindset, treating their setbacks as lessons rather than indictments of their worth. They started to practice self-compassion, reminding themselves that failure is a natural part of growth. This shift didn't make them soft, it made them resilient. They learned to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and move forward with renewed determination. So how can you apply this in your own life? The next time you face a challenge, pause and ask yourself, what would I say to a friend in this situation? Then extend that same compassion to yourself. Remember, treating yourself with kindness isn't a sign of weakness, it's a strategic act of strength. It allows you to face adversity with clarity, courage, and a steady heart. By balancing discipline with self-compassion, you're not just surviving hardship, you're transforming it into a stepping stone for growth. Adversity isn't meaningless, it's a call to find purpose. The Stoics believed that every challenge we face is an opportunity to uncover something deeper about ourselves and the world around us. They saw hardship not as a random, cruel twist of fate, but as a teacher guiding us toward a more meaningful existence. When life tests us, it asks us to dig beneath the surface, to question what truly matters, and to align our actions with values that endure even in the face of struggle. Take a psychologist and Holocaust survivor who was deeply influenced by Stoic philosophy. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." This idea echoes the Stoic principle that adversity doesn't define us, it refines us. Survived unimaginable suffering by finding meaning in his circumstances, and his story shows how even the darkest moments can lead to profound personal growth. Consider the example of someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it might feel like a crushing blow, but over time, this adversity can become a catalyst for reinvention. Perhaps it forces them to explore a new career path, one they never would have considered otherwise. Or maybe it inspires them to start their own business, driven by a newfound sense of purpose. The Stoics would argue that this setback wasn't an end, it was the beginning of a journey toward something greater. So what meaning can you find in your own adversity? When life throws obstacles in your path, what lessons are hidden within them? The Stoics remind us that challenges aren't just something to endure, they're invitations to grow, to reflect, and to uncover the values that give our lives direction. By embracing this mindset, we can transform even the most difficult experiences into sources of strength and meaning. Equanimity is the Stoic superpower in adversity. It's that steady, unshakable calm that allows us to face even the most turbulent situations with clarity and purpose. The Stoics believed that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. And that's where equanimity comes in. It's the practice of maintaining inner balance, no matter how chaotic the world around us becomes. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What he meant was that our fears and anxieties often amplify the challenges we face, making them seem far worse than they are. But when we cultivate equanimity, we strip away those layers of mental noise. We see the situation for what it truly is, not what our emotions or imagination make it out to be. This clarity allows us to act with wisdom and intention, rather than reacting impulsively out of fear or frustration. Take the story of a business owner who faced the sudden collapse of their company during an economic downturn. Instead of panicking or giving in to despair, they chose to focus on what they could control, their mindset and their next steps. They took a deep breath, assessed the situation calmly, and began to rebuild, one small step at a time. By maintaining equanimity, they were able to navigate the crisis with resilience and eventually emerge stronger. So how can you practice equanimity in your own life? Start by pausing the next time you face a challenge. Take a moment to breathe deeply and observe your thoughts without judgment. Ask yourself, what is truly within my control here? By shifting your focus to what you can influence, you'll find it easier to stay balanced, even when the world feels like it's spinning out of control. Equanimity isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about managing them so they don't manage you. And that's a skill worth cultivating. No matter what storms life throws your way, adaptation isn't surrender, it's survival. This might sound counterintuitive at first, especially when we think of adversity as something to fight against or overcome. But the Stoics teach us that true strength lies not in resisting change, but in embracing it with flexibility. They saw life as a series of ever-shifting circumstances, and the key to thriving wasn't about controlling every outcome, but about learning to adjust our sails when the winds change direction. As Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that our power lies in our ability to adapt, not in our ability to avoid hardship. Consider this. When a tree faces a strong storm, it doesn't stand rigid and unyielding. Instead, it bends, allowing the wind to pass through its branches without breaking. In the same way, Stoicism encourages us to cultivate a mindset of resilience through flexibility. Adversity often forces us to confront situations we didn't plan for, whether it's losing a job, facing a health challenge, or navigating a relationship breakdown. The Stoic approach isn't to fight these changes tooth and nail, but to accept them as part of life's natural rhythm, and then adapt accordingly. Take the story of one of history's most famous Stoics. As a Roman emperor, he faced constant political turmoil, wars, and personal losses. Yet he didn't let these challenges define him. Instead, he adapted to each situation with a calm and focused mind, using his philosophy as a guide. He wrote in his personal journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." His ability to adapt wasn't a sign of weakness, but a testament to his strength and wisdom. So how can we apply this in our own lives? Think about a time when you faced a sudden change or obstacle. Did you resist it, or did you find a way to adapt? The Stoics would argue that every challenge is an opportunity to practice this art of adaptation. Maybe it's learning a new skill after a career setback, finding new routines after a major life change, or simply shifting your perspective when things don't go as planned. The more flexible we become, the more resilient we grow. Now take a moment to reflect. What's one challenge you're facing right now where you could practice adaptability? How might shifting your approach, even slightly, help you navigate it with greater ease and resilience? Remember, adaptation isn't about giving up or giving in. It's about finding a way forward no matter the circumstances. Reflection turns adversity into wisdom. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a nice idea, it was a core practice. When life throws challenges our way, it's easy to get caught up in the moment, reacting emotionally or feeling overwhelmed. But the Stoics taught us to step back, to pause, and to reflect. By doing so, we transform those difficult experiences into powerful lessons. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers put it this way: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very obstacles we face can become the tools we use to grow stronger and wiser. But how does this work in practice? Let's say you've gone through a tough time. Maybe you lost a job, faced a personal setback, or struggled with a relationship. In the heat of the moment, it might feel like the world is against you. But when you take the time to reflect, you start to see things differently. You might realize that this challenge taught you resilience, helped you discover new strengths, or even redirected you toward a better path. Reflection allows you to extract meaning from the chaos, and that meaning becomes the foundation of your growth. Take, for example, the story of Thomas Edison. After his laboratory burned down in a devastating fire, he didn't dwell on the loss. Instead, he reflected on the opportunity it presented. He famously said, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Now we can start anew." His ability to reflect on the situation allowed him to see the fire not as an end, but as a fresh start. That mindset, rooted in Stoic principles, helped him rebuild and continue his groundbreaking work. Now think about your own life. What challenges have you faced and what have they taught you? When you reflect on those moments, what insights emerge? The Stoics believed that every hardship carries a lesson, but it's up to us to uncover it. So, take a moment to consider, how has adversity shaped you? What wisdom have you gained from your struggles? By reflecting on these questions, you're not just revisiting the past, you're preparing yourself for the future, armed with the knowledge and strength that only adversity can provide. Throughout this journey, we've explored how adversity, far from being an obstacle to avoid, is one of life's most profound teachers. It's through challenges that we develop resilience, learning to stand firm even when the winds of life blow fiercely. Acceptance, too, plays a vital role, not as resignation, but as a powerful tool to see reality clearly and act with intention. And perhaps most importantly, we've seen how mindset shapes our experience. The way we frame our struggles can transform them from sources of despair into opportunities for growth. As Seneca so wisely said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Think about that for a moment. Just as lifting weights builds physical strength, facing adversity builds mental fortitude. It's not the absence of hardship that defines a good life, but how we respond to it. Stoicism teaches us to meet challenges head-on, to find meaning in the struggle, and to emerge stronger, wiser, and more grounded. Now it's your turn. Take a moment to reflect on the challenges you're facing right now. How can you apply these Stoic principles to navigate them with greater clarity and purpose? What lessons might they hold for you? Remember, growth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. If this resonated with you, let us know in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your struggles, or even your favorite Stoic quote. And if you're eager to dive deeper into these timeless ideas, consider subscribing for more insights on how Stoicism can help you live a more intentional, resilient life. Together, let's embrace adversity not as an enemy, but as a teacher, one that guides us toward becoming the best versions of ourselves.